Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasa Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. We are reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 18, text 32. I'm going to look that up. 1:18:32. Tasya putro titejasvi viharan balako orbikai ragyagham prapitam tattam shrutva tatredam abravit Tasya putro titejasvi.
You can only recite them.
I understand. Okay. Viharan balakor bikai. Ragyagham prapitam tatam. Shrutva tatredam abravit. Right. Read the synonyms, please. Tasya is the sages. Putraha, son. Oh, they will recite. Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. If anyone else would like to chant the verse, please do. I'm sorry. Please do chant.
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Viharan balakor bhakai.
Viharan balakor bhakai.
Ragyagham prapitam tatam.
Ragyagham prapitam tatam.
Shrutva tatredam abravit.
Shrutva tatredam abravit. Anyone else?
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Viharan balakor bhakai.
Viharan balakor bhakai.
Rajnyaham prapitam tatam.
Ragyagham prapitam tatam.
Shrutva tatridam abravit.
Shrutva tatredam abravit.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Tasya putra tete jashi
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Biharan balakor arbhakai
Viharan balakor bhakai.
Rajagham prapitam tatam
Ragyagham prapitam tatam.
Sruta tatredam abravit.
Shrutva tatredam abravit.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Haribol.
Tasya putro ati tejasvi
Tasya putro titejasvi.
Viharan baliko arbhakai
Viharan balako bhakai.
Ragyagham praptitam tatam
Ragyagham prapitam tatam.
Shrutva tatredam abravit.
Shrutva tatredam abravit.
Hare Krishna. Tasya putro titejasvi.
Tasya putra titejasvi
Viharam balako bakai.
viharan balakor bakai
Rajnagam prapitam tatam.
Ragyagham prapitam tatam
Rutva tatridam abravit.
Shutva tatredam abravit
Tasya putra ti tejasvi
Tasya putra titejasvi
Viharan balakarvake
viharan balakor bakai
Ragyadham prapitam tatam
Ragyagham prapitam atam
Srutva tatredam abrave.
Shutva tatredam abravit. Okay, now the synonyms. Tasya, his, the sages. Putra, son. Ati, extremely. Tejasvi, powerful. Viharan, while playing. Balakai, boys. Arbakai, who are all childish. Ragya, by the king. Agham, distress. Prapitam, I can't read this. It's made to. Made to have the father. Oh, there we go. Made to have. Tatam, the father. Shrutva, by hearing. Tatra, then and there. Idam, this. Abravit, spoke. Translation. The sage had a son who was very powerful, being a Brahmin's son. When he was playing with inexperienced boys, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there, the boy spoke as follows. Purport. Due to Maharaj Parikshit's good government, even a boy of tender age who was playing with other inexperienced boys could become as powerful as a qualified Brahmin. This boy was known as Shringi, and he achieved good training in brahmacharya by his father so that he could be as powerful as a Brahmin, even at that age. But because the age of Kali was seeking an opportunity to spoil the cultural heritage of the four orders of life, the inexperienced boy gave a chance for the age of Kali to enter into the field of Vedic culture. Hatred of the lower orders of life began from this Brahmin boy under the influence of Kali, and thus cultural life began to dwindle day after day. The first victim of Brahminical injustice was Maharaj Parikshit, and thus the protection given by the king against the onslaught of Kali was slackened. The sage had a son who was very powerful, being a Brahmin's son. While he was playing with inexperienced boys, he heard of his father's distress, which was occasioned by the king. Then and there, the boy spoke as follows. Hare Krishna. So, I wanted to ask if you could help me remember the qualities of the Brahmins that are listed in the Bhagavad Gita. There are 9 of them, as I count. Who can name one? Just go ahead and shout them out. What?
Cleanliness.
Yes, cleanliness, socham, purity. Wisdom. Others?
Shantam.
Shantam, peacefulness.
Sense control.
Sense control. That's just, yeah, dhamma.
Tolerance.
Tolerance, right? Tapa. What is tapa?
Austerity.
Austerity. And how about arjavam? Honesty. Then yes, knowledge, jnanam, vijnanam, wisdom, and arjitam. Arjitam, anyone know that one? It means religiosity, piety. So these are the qualities by which the Brahmins naturally work. The first 3 especially, sama, dhamma, tapa, and also chantir. These indicate an ability to keep a cool head and not react when there is cause for disturbance. So just that simple ability to not react when things go awry is characteristic of so many of these different qualities: peacefulness, self-control, austerity, and tolerance. So these are the actual qualities by which Brahmins work. In this case, we see Shringi exhibiting none of them. Although he was qualified in certain ways, he had not developed the maturity to manifest these qualities. So let's just examine this for a moment. What a gift it is to be able to not react to things, even when there's cause for disturbance. And it doesn't mean that one has to remain passive in the face of difficulties, but rather it means that one has the self-control, the foresight, the wisdom to say, okay, maybe I don't have the whole picture here. So before just a knee-jerk reaction, I see, let me learn more, tell me more, help me understand. In this way, the Brahminical qualities manifest. So much, Brajabihari Prabhu, our ISKCON Resolve director, was saying that most disputes are caused by assumptions. We assume a person has a certain mood or a certain attitude, and then we react accordingly. And that's just the opposite of what Brahminical qualifications dictate. Just to tolerate, just to be patient and see what is actually the whole situation. This immediate reaction by Shringi brought in the whole Kali Yuga. He didn't consult with anybody. He didn't say, let me get the whole story. He didn't ask anyone's opinion. He was just eager to show off his power and immediately reacted thoughtlessly. So this brought distress not only to him and to his father and to Maharaj Parikshit, but to the whole world. Just this impetuous, reactive response from the powerful Brahmin. Now, a Vaishnava can work in any of the four ashram orders of life. And we are not bound just by Brahminical behavior. But the Brahminical qualifications are at the same time characteristic of one who is balanced in Vaishnavism. In other words, you can't, you can be a Brahmin without being a Vaishnava, but you can't be a Vaishnava without being a Brahmin. You have to be able to keep calm and be able to use discretion. So, the story of the Chinese farmer, the famous story of the Chinese farmer. He was fortunate to have some wild horses run across his land, and his son captured one. The horses are very valuable. So the neighbor said to the farmer, "Oh, you're so fortunate, you got a horse." He said, "Maybe yes, maybe no." So then the son was training the horse, but the horse threw him off and broke his leg. So the neighbor said, "Oh, you're so unfortunate, your son can't work now." Maybe yes, maybe no. So then the kingdom declared war, and the soldiers came in to recruit all the young men from the village. But the young man, the son, couldn't go because his leg was broken. So all the neighbors said, "Oh, you're so fortunate." So maybe yes, maybe no. So it goes on. The point is that being wise enough to not react is a quality that really helps our devotional service in so many ways. There are so many examples from the Bhagavatam of great Brahmins who both kept their cool and lost their cool. One who kept his cool, for example, is Sudama Vipra. Sudama lived a very austere life, and his wife was only upset because she couldn't feed her husband properly, and he was becoming very skinny. That was her only concern. So she told him one day, I don't have food to feed you properly, but your good friend Krishna is very wealthy, and I'm sure he would be glad to give you charity as a qualified Brahmin. This is the right of the Brahmins in Kali Yuga. In Vedic culture, you can expect to gain support from people just for teaching spiritual knowledge. People value it, people want that, and therefore they're very generously giving to the Brahmins, so much so that the Brahmins have generally a surplus and can exhibit their own charitable natures by properly distributing the excess. But in Kali Yuga, Brahminical quality, spiritual knowledge is not valued, not appreciated, even amongst devotees. Sometimes we feel, oh, I'm investing so much time in Krishna consciousness, especially young men and women who give some time in life to the mission. So I'm giving some time to the mission, but then what do I get out of it? When I'm finished, then I have not furthered my education, my economic development. So I'm just kind of, I lost these years and I have to now make up ground. This is so unfortunate because, first of all, the value of what we learn is so immense, not only for ourselves, but for others. And people do value and do appreciate it. But it is tough to find such people. And that's the difficulty. So the ideal thing, the Brahmin, the devotee will create his own community in Brahmins, and people will recognize and support and participate. But in any case, Sudama was somehow poor in spite of the high degree of culture and civilization around him. So given this order, his request from his wife, he said, yes, of course I will go. I'd love to go. It's a great excuse to go and see my old friend Krishna, but I have to take him something. Do we have anything, any little gift I could offer? So his wife went out and begged some inexpensive rice, put it in a little pouch, and gave it to her husband. So as he was walking to Dwarka, Sudama was thinking, wow, I don't know if they'll even let me in because I'm just some vagabond stranger. And when he reached the gates of Dwarka, there was another group of Brahmins going in, so he just kind of joined them and went past the guards. Once he was in, then he began approaching, it says Krishna's palace. You wonder which one, but anyway, one of them, one with me. So as he approached, Krishna saw him from a distance and became very excited. Here is my old friend. And he got everyone in the palace to arrange a greeting, and he was so happy to see him, so much so that the residents of the palace were wondering, who is this ragged-looking Brahmin? Why is Krishna making such a fuss? But Krishna was so very grateful that he'd come, he sat him down, he washed his feet, he took the foot wash and sprinkled it on his family members. And as far as Sudama was concerned, he had just entered the spiritual world. He had no idea how dear he was to Krishna and how opulent Krishna was. So he was just quite overwhelmed to see his old friend. Then Krishna sat him down and said, my dear friend, after providing him prasad and rest, they began reminiscing about the old days. And he said, you remember when we were young boys in school? In the Gurukula, it didn't matter if one was a king's son or a Brahmin's son or whatever. There was no hierarchical or parental rights to one ashram or one varna or another. Rather, it was up to the spiritual master in the ashram to determine what is the nature of each child. So the son of the cowherd, Krishna, was there, together with the son of the Brahmin, Sudama, and they became fast friends. So one night their guru, Sandipani Muni, or one day rather, he said, please go out and collect some firewood, a common task for the young boys. But on this occasion, there was a tremendous storm that came in and flooded everything. So as a result of the flood, they couldn't find their way home. There was no path to see. So they had no choice but to spend the night out in the cold and the rain. And in the morning, Sandipani Muni was looking for them, so distraught, and he found them and praised them. You are such sincere disciples and sincere students. You have taken so much trouble for me. In this way, Sudama and Krishna were reminiscing how they pleased their guru. So then Krishna asked him, so have you brought something for me? Seeing all this opulence, Sudama was very reluctant to take out his humble gift. So he just sat there and did nothing. But then Krishna reached in his robes and pulled out this bag of rice. Oh, you brought me some rice. Thank you so much. I'm going to eat it right now. He untied the bag and started chewing the uncooked rice. And he was so very blissful eating this rice that Rukmini had to come and say, Krishna, no, don't eat it all. Everybody else is going to want some. So he took this very humble offering from Sudama and made such a great show of it. Sincerely, this is how Krishna reciprocates with a little effort from our part. He gives so much in return. Sudama, though being cool-headed, he did not become fazed by any of this. He was just very grateful to be with Krishna. So grateful, in fact, that he forgot his purpose of asking for charity. So Krishna offered no charity. Sometimes that happens. Brahmins may sometimes be given generous charity, sometimes they may not be given any at all. That does not bother the cool-headed Brahmin, because the Brahmin is surrendered to Krishna, and one of the symptoms of surrender is depending on Krishna for protection and maintenance. So the Brahmin knows, okay, this is Krishna is giving whatever is appropriate at this time. Sudama therefore didn't ask anything. He made the cardinal mistake of forgetting his wife's instruction and left the palace. Then he remembered, oh yes, I was supposed to ask Krishna something. Anyway, it was wonderful to see him. He probably felt that if I had asked, he would have had to give me so much wealth that I would have become enamored with it. So he's so very kind to me that he didn't want me to become spoiled by excessive wealth. And this way he remained, again, the cool-headed Brahmin. He didn't panic, he didn't freak out, he didn't curse himself. He just said, oh, okay, this happened. It is Krishna's desire. But then when he arrived home, he came to this spot of his hovel, and there was this magnificent palace. And he was bewildered. What is this? Am I in the wrong place? And then this angelic woman came out surrounded by many maidservants dressed in fine silks and jewels. And he could not recognize her, but she could recognize him. It was his wife. So he was astonished what happened. And she said, I don't know, just all of a sudden this all manifested. And then she took him by the hand and showed him through the magnificent palace with its marble pillars and emerald-studded walls. And they were both just incredibly overwhelmed with the beauty of it all. So then Sudama realized, okay, Krishna must have done all this. He must feel that I can accept wealth and not become attached to it. So this is how Sudama remained very even-keeled all throughout these ups and downs. He was not disturbed in being in poverty, nor was he disturbed when he became wealthy. We know from the history of the lotteries that people who win more often than not end up losing everything. And often they end up in great duress because their family members and their loved ones all want to get a piece of it. So the point is that things may go well and they may not. We may be opulent or we may be poor. The devotee with Brahminical qualifications understands that all of that is in Krishna's control. No reaction. So how do we not react when there's cause for provocation? The first thing is to understand that reacting is foolish. Reacting is a product of the modes of nature, even if it's very bad news. There's a saying about ISKCON temple presidents. They have big ears and sloped foreheads. Do you know why? What happened? Oh, no. It is a hard job. So when bad things happen, Chantir Arjavam Eva Cha, just understanding we may not have the whole picture, not reacting. This is the Brahminical qualification. As examples of Brahmins who did not possess this quality, there are many. One is Durvasa, who was offended by a very slight, inappropriate breaking of a fast by Maharaj Ambarish. The Brahmins who were performing the rituals in Vrindavan, very attached to their ritualistic performances. And when the cowherd boys came and said, Krishna and Balaram are hungry, don't bother us. They wouldn't even acknowledge their existence. See, once again, an inappropriate reaction. Surely they could have said, oh, come and see us in a little while. We're busy now. Or, yes, we'd be glad to provide prasad for you a little later. None of that. Just ignoring. Nothing could be more insulting to somebody than just to pretend they don't exist. Yeah. As if our Brahminical activities are so important that we do not even need to acknowledge your existence. This is exactly the opposite of Brahminical qualities. So when the Brahmins refused, Krishna was amused and said, go see their wives. Of course, he knew these wonderful devotees would gladly bring him prasad, which they did in great abundance and with great speed. They rushed to Krishna. They brought all of this prasad. And then they asked, could we just kind of stay here with you? And Krishna said, that would be against all dharma. You must go back to your husbands, even if they're not the best. You go back and help them with their rituals, and this is your duty. So reluctantly, they went back. But then the Brahmins saw what the whole thing had transpired, and they realized how foolish they had been. So once again, great disturbance in their mind. Damn these rituals. What good are they? We're doing all this ritual, all these traditional yagyas, and we still don't have any love for Krishna. And then our wives have so much love for Krishna. It's said, if your rituals bring you love of Krishna, you don't need them anymore. And if your rituals don't bring you love of Krishna, what is the use of them? So either way, the rituals are secondary importance. So the Brahmins realized this, and again, not being very advanced in their culture, they were very disturbed. They cursed themselves, they cursed their rituals, they cursed their decisions, very angry. And then they thought, well, maybe we could go with Krishna too, like our wives did. We could go to him and we could serve him. But then, being not cool-headed, they thought, oh, but Kamsa might find out and he would be angry. So if our purpose is pleasing Krishna, it's easier to keep a cool head, to be peaceful. Srila Prabhupada gave this Brahminical initiation, and he always said it was the beginning. You know, he reminded his students that you're getting this Brahminical initiation. This means you're starting to have the abilities and the qualifications of a Brahmin. The second initiation in our Sangha is given when a person, Prabhupada said, has become a competent Vaishnava. Competent Vaishnava, meaning at least for a year, one has been steadily chanting and following the regulative principles, chanting 16 rounds. So the initiation for Brahmins is a chance for devotees to do deity worship, to perform yagyas. The requirement is usually there to have at least a Bhakti Shastri degree to demonstrate some degree of proficiency in the scriptures. Then the official beginning of our Brahminical lives is there. And from that point, then we need to learn to moderate our behavior accordingly. It's very great credit to Srila Prabhupada if the young men and women, especially from the West, can manifest Brahminical qualities. It is said, yes, yastir bhaktir bhagavati kinchana in Srimad Bhagavatam, that one who is trying to serve Krishna automatically manifests the good qualities. Arav abhaktasya kato mahadguna. However, if one has no interest in serving Krishna, kato mahaguna, where are their good qualities? Why is that? Because they will inevitably be on the mental platform of accepting and rejecting. Manovrtena satovehi, the chariot of the mind. So when we take initiation, second initiation, it means we have an obligation to get off the mental platform, to realize that we do have some control over our behavior, to not just meander through life like a pinball, bouncing off this, bouncing off that, but having a steady, consistent purpose that allows us to remember that Krishna is controlling everything. Once a gentleman named Peter Burwash was taking an interest in Krishna consciousness. He was a young tennis professional, and he was invited to become a life member in the temple in Hawaii. So this was an investment of $1,000, a lot of money at the time, a lot of money for this young man, but he paid it because he was very convinced about the value of Krishna consciousness. So when he gave the temple president this money, the next day the temple president took the money and left. And Peter was just devastated. So he came to see Srila Prabhupada and told him about it. Prabhupada was very firm with him, and he told him something that remained the cornerstone of his spiritual life. He said, do not blame the agent of your karma. Do not blame the agent of your karma. So that is a way that we can avoid reaction, inappropriate reactions, when we have cause for provocation. Somebody says something to upset us, then the defending propensity kicks in. That propensity, Srila Prabhupada said, is even stronger than the mating propensity. Because if our ego is affected, then we want to protect it at all costs. Our conception of ourselves, our respectability, our knowledge, our reputation. If we are criticized, the defending propensity makes us react. This is very unbrahminical behavior, very deeply rooted, but just an example. When people are berating us, then devotees who I really admire are able to just take it so very gracefully and recognize that here is my karma coming to me through the agency of this person. I was having a discussion with one of my GBC godbrothers in India, and I was expressing some frustration about some situations. And he very politely folded his hands and sat there and listened to me. I was very impressed by that. Just by that gesture, immediately the stress I was feeling about the situation dissipated. So this is Brahminical culture, to be able to hate the sin and not the sinner, to be able to take criticism without feeling our egos trampled on. This is how Brahminical qualifications manifest. Srila Prabhupada was questioned, are you sure these Westerners can become Brahmins? And what happens if they take this initiation, Brahmin initiation or sannyas initiation, and then later deviate from the strict path? So Srila Prabhupada said, when you have vegetables, you don't ask, are they going to go bad tomorrow? You cook them today. So he very nicely compared his disciples to sabjis and said, yes, if they are ready to take this commitment, then how can we say no? How can we say no? It is, these Brahminical qualities are not trained, are not ingrained in us, in our education and our upbringing. In most cases, we are brought up to be very competitive, to be very defensive, to try to promote ourselves because we feel this is the way you progress in life. But we take up the spiritual path and very, very much focus on the qualities we're developing. As Peter put it, you want to be a person who is appreciated wherever they go, not whenever they go. So Shringi, the Brahmin, immediately reacted without having the whole story, without consulting with his father, without considering the whole situation, and created havoc. So this is one of the great lessons we can learn from this pastime. How to just keep our cool, how to keep our Brahminical qualities high in our consciousness, and realize that what we do is really important. It represents the parampara. It represents Krishna to our friends, to whomever we might be interacting with. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes that the principles of religion are established not by logic and debate, but by the behavior of the devotees. What we do, therefore, is far more important than what we say. Our actions will speak much louder than our words. So we may know the Shastra, but if we live the Shastra, that will really impress people. That will make people aware of the power of Krishna consciousness. All right, I'll stop there. Any reflections, thoughts, questions? Okay, back to Max. I'll repeat it for the devotees on Zoom.
Sorry. When you mentioned how the Brahmins, the husbands of the wives of the Brahmins, would have that internal mentality, like and cursing themselves for their mistake.
So the Brahmins were cursing themselves for their mistakes.
Yeah. What's the internal resolve for that? And
What's the internal resolve? Like if we make a mistake, yeah, if we do something, if we behave in an unbrahminical way, the motivation to love Krishna is never provided by guilt or shame or fear. So if we make a mistake, it simply needs to be acknowledged. We acknowledge the mistake, we consider who it may have affected, and we try to rectify the situation. So that takes us above the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance is self-deprecation, or self-condemnation. It's self-absorption too. You see, it's not Krishna conscious, it's self-conscious. Oh, I'm such a bad person. Oh, this is the mode of ignorance. And so if we make a mistake, which we all do, it has to be recognized and dealt with. And if apologies are in order, they need to be given. Forgiveness requested. It may or may not come. That's up to the person that has been hurt by our mistake, not us. So these are the things that Shringi does in subsequent verses under the direction of his father, but by then it's too late. He acted impulsively, and then he regretted. As they say, act in haste, lament in leisure.
so try to prevent it, but if some mistake occurs, recognizing it.
Try to prevent the mistake, but if one occurs, recognize it, address it immediately, especially in terms of others that it may have hurt. An apology can go a long way towards rectifying mistakes. Just to acknowledge that I did something wrong, it hurt you, and I care about it, and I did not intend to do so. The mistake here Shringi made is so profound, but it wasn't until his father chastised him that he could recognize it. All right. Any other thoughts, reflections anyone would like to share?
Acharya Prabhu has raised his hand. Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. I can't help asking, but the GBC person who very humbly folded his hands and listened to your suggestions, I can't help but ask if he afterwards actually did anything concrete to address your concerns.
What he did, Prabhu, was explain to me things that were being done to address it already, of which I was unaware. And he empathized with the difficulty of the situation and expressed his support. So I felt relieved afterwards. There was information that I did not have, So in that case, yes, I felt addressed. I felt understood. I felt heard, and afterwards felt better about the whole situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We tend to ready, fire, aim. Before we have the whole target in our scope, we shoot. Thank you very much. Any other thoughts, questions?
I have a question. Thank you so much for covering. So at the beginning, you mentioned the qualities of a Brahmana. Then you mentioned also that a Vaishnava is a Brahmana, and Brahmana not necessarily is a Vaishnava. And then you said that a Vaishnava can be in any of the orders. So in all of the orders, does the Vaishnava has to display Brahminical quality or not?
In all of the orders, does a Vaishnava have to display Brahminical qualities? No, no one has to act according to the need. For example, Arjuna was promoting some Brahminical responses to the war. Better to act with equanimity than to fight my relatives. And Krishna did not accept that. He wanted him to act as a Kshatriya. So whatever Krishna desires, we are obliged to act in that way. Music, for example, is a Shudra profession, but we can play music for Krishna. Accounting is a Vaishya profession, but we should account very expertly for Krishna. And so we could be Brahminical in our accounting and say, oh, just take the money, everybody, Krishna supply. We could be Brahminical in our music and just say, oh, whatever you play is fine. But we like to hear expert musicians and kirtan leaders, and that's better to offer to Krishna. So the point is, within the scope of the Vaishnav, one should be able to act in any of the varnas. Srila Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, you should be a jack of all trades and a master of one. Not a master of none, a master of one. One should be expert at something, particularly expert, whatever that may be. Is that all right?
Yes, that's thank you. So in that aspect, Prabhupada in his initial days when he was cultivating, he's primarily focusing on considering in relation to today's verse, because the Brahmins if Brahmin fail to discharge their duties properly, then whole civilization will collapse. So is it correct to say the initial days Prabhupada came to re-establish the Brahminical position, at least, at the same time recognizing that I'll have Vaishnavas and other Varna also will be there. Is that right or no?
He wanted his disciples to have the Brahminical qualifications, because then they're Vaishnavas. You can't be a Vaishnava without having the Brahminical qualifications. Though you could be a hereditary Brahmin just by birth, or even by vocation, without having the qualities of the Vaishnava. Now, the qualities of the Vaishnava are even more numerous than the qualities of the Brahmin. And it has a lot to do with similar things such as tolerance and patience, but also more proactive things such as devotees are poetic, and they express compassion, which is not listed in the Gita's qualities of the Brahmins. So there are many further qualifications for a Vaishnava beyond those of a Brahmin, but the Vaishnava should include the qualities of the Brahmin. It's difficult to be a Vaishnava if we treat people harshly, for example. It's difficult to be a Vaishnava if we're very reactionary to every disturbance that comes along. So everything is controlled by Krishna. That's how the Vaishnava thinks. Therefore, whatever comes along, Krishna has sent us for some reason. It's beyond the maybe yes, maybe no of the Chinese farmer.
So in occupation, it can be different, but in qualities, all Vaishnavas will manifest same qualities.
Yes, that's right. Occupation may be different. Like to be a Kshatriya, you have to have some passion. To fight in a battle like Arjuna, or to manage a temple, you have to be aggressive, you have to be protective, you have to be resourceful, the qualities of a Kshatriya. So the Vaishnava can do all those things if that is what Krishna requires.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, yes. Mataji, would you like to share something?
No, I just thank you very much for a wonderful class. These are the kinds of classes we need first thing in the morning so that we can apply them. The thing that you had said about apology is just so appropriate. When we apologize and we don't react, we diffuse the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, and also when you were talking about speaking to your GBC godbrother, one very important thing is to actively listen. Sometimes people just want to be heard because nobody gives them the time. And once they are heard, the solution even appears without you giving it to them. But the most important thing today that I am going to reflect on is how important it is that we as Srila Prabhupada's disciples, we have to make sure that when people see us, they see us as ISKCON devotees. We need to practice these qualities. We have to exhibit these qualities because we sort of represent ISKCON, and we don't want people to say, "Oh, look at them," you know. It's a big responsibility, and all of us should think about that when we come up with these situations.
Mhm. Yes, very true. Very true. We have a big responsibility to represent this wonderful disciplic succession. Very fortunate.
Yes.
So, yeah. Thank you. All right. Anything else?
I don't see any more hands up.
All right. So it's a pleasure to see you all. Thank you. Oh, Ritu. Ritu had a...
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Such a
Okay.
wonderful class. Being a young mother, I have 2 small kids. When you talk about patience, I always think my thoughts always around to my kids, because at this moment I get mad at them because they don't listen. So are we supposed to get mad at kids because if they don't listen? You try 10 times, maybe 2-3 times politely, but at the end they don't listen, then you really lose your temperament.
Right.
I have noticed that in myself, that I do that, though I try not to. Please guide me.
Right. Kids are empowered to bring out the worst in their parents. That is true. They know exactly what buttons to hit and how to get their parents upset. There's a book called How to Talk So Children Will Listen and How to Listen So Children Will Talk. And the gist of that book is to make sure that our communication is clear and calm and consistent. So if the children see us getting upset, that they feel empowered. And the antidote to that is to take time to explain things in advance as much as possible. I'm not saying it's easy. It's more like do what I say and not what I did as a parent. But this is the idea that if the children are treated with respect, like adults, and things are explained in advance of the emotional upheaval, then the parent can keep their cool and remind the child, remember we discussed this. The mood of respect is very important to convey to the children. And we love our children. When they're little, they think that we're God's gift to the world. And when they get a little older, they think that we're the worst curse on humanity. And that's just part of the joy of parenthood. But in any kind of preaching, counseling, caretaking, our charges, our students will reflect our behavior. So we need to exhibit the behavior we want them to show. So if we exhibit respect and calmness, then they will mirror that kind of behavior from their parents. That's the best answer I could offer. Perhaps some other parents on the call here might like to further elaborate or offer some other strategies.
You gave a very nice explanation, Prabhu. I work with preschoolers, and it's like you said, it's a very difficult job. Sometimes you do lose your cool. Don't beat yourself on that. Just understand it is and it's an ongoing process. So what Prabhu said is exactly what you should do, is treat them with respect, explain to them as best as you can beforehand. And but it is their nature to test, and I think that is a very important thing, is you don't lose your cool. When you lose your cool, they feel empowered, and then the cycle will continue. So do your best, even if you're really upset, to stay as calm as possible. And
Yeah. True,
Yeah.
Mother.
I wanted to share that raising children was the best preparation I had for learning to raise disciples, because the disciples come full grown, but at the same time, they also know how to push buttons. And so much of parenthood is involved with treating people respectfully when they come of age. Like Chanakya Pandit said, from 1 to 5, you give them everything. From 5 to 16, you're like a tiger, and 16 on, you have to be a friend. So in that respect, with teenagers, particularly very challenging age, they have to be treated like adults and allowed to have room to make mistakes. So it is also with disciples. And parenthood is a great preparation for that service, which I'm very hopeful more and more of us will take up as the years go on. Srila Prabhupada wanted each of his disciples to have an average of 10 disciples, 10 people they would care for in the course of their lives and bring to and train in Krishna consciousness. So when the kids are grown, you're going to be very well prepared for taking on that service. And I hope that more and more of us can take part in that desire, fulfilling that desire of Srila Prabhupada as the years go on. Thank you. Ritu, any other comments? Any other thoughts?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Haribol.
Haribol. Thank you very much for your very nice class. It's really nice and very thought-provoking. And one question I have, sometimes there are situations then we tend to react. But I remember this, that I should not react, and then I control myself. When I control, sometimes there is an ego there inside me. So how to control that ego?
When you control yourself, I didn't hear the last sentence you said.
Ego, sometimes I feel ego, that I control myself. But there's ego
right.
there.
Yes, when we control ourselves, we're still seething inside. We want to react.
Yeah.
So when the ego is disturbed, it's like a bruise on the subtle body. It's like an injury. And that injury cannot be healed instantly. It has to be given a little time to heal. So that desire for instant gratification, making ourselves feel good again, it only exacerbates the conflict. It's so easy to say, once we get in this habit, if we feel angry or agitated by something, to say, okay, let me get back to you about that, to give ourselves some time to heal, to give ourselves some time to process the feelings that are welling up. Okay, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Let's sleep on that. Thank you for that input. Let me consider and we'll talk tomorrow. Just buying some time is the first way to keep samadhama tapasocham chantir. It's indulging, this vegam, this pushing of anger. It demands immediate release, but it's an urge that has to be controlled, and this is the minimum way to control it. Is to allow it to wash over us without indulging it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. All right. So pleasure to see everyone. Thank you for tuning in this morning. I pray that Radha Shard Bihari will bestow everyone in the Philadelphia congregation with all blessings. And I look forward to my next visit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.